I will tell you about my life. I didn't expect things to turn out this way either.
The clock on my bedside table read 12:15 a.m. In a house this old, silence isn't just the absence of sound. It's a weight. It's the sound of wood settling and memories breathing in the walls. Then my phone vibrated. It hummed against the nightstand like a trapped insect. My heart, an old organ, skipped a beat. The screen's glow was blinding in the pitch black. Ethan, my son doesn't call at midnight. Ethan is a man of protocols, a man who lives in the world of shadows, high-level intelligence, and classified briefings. When he calls, it's usually at 8 a.m. on a Sunday. I swiped the screen, Ethan, I whispered. My voice felt like dry parchment, Dad, he said. His voice wasn't just low, it was cold. Cold like a winter morning in the mountains. Don't speak. Just listen. I don't have time to explain, and you don't have time to ask. I sat up. Every bone in my body protested. There are 2 men in a black sedan parked 2 blocks from your house. They aren't the danger. The danger's inside, Dad. It's inside the house with you. My breath hitched. My mind immediately went to Clara, sleeping in the guest room down the hall, and Marcus. Listen to me carefully, Ethan continued. Do not turn on a single light. Do not put on your slippers. Walk barefoot. Go to the basement. Now, the basement? Ethan, what now, Dad? Behind the old furnace. The crawl space. Lock it from the inside. If you hear someone at the door, do not answer. I'm 4 hours away. I'm driving as fast as the law will allow. Move. The line went dead. The silence returned, but it was different now. It was predatory. My name is Arthur Vance. For 42 years, I was the man people brought their broken history to. I fix clocks. I understand the language of gears, the tension of springs, the fragile balance of a balance wheel. Time is honest. The gear is worn, the clock slows. If a spring is tight, it races. You can't lie to a clock. I wish I could say the same for people. I stood up. The floorboards were cold. I knew exactly where to step to avoid the squeaks. I had built this house with Martha. Every nail, every joint was a part of our story. I passed the hallway mirror. I couldn't see my face, but I felt the ghost of the man I used to be. A man who was strong. A man who was sure. Now I was a senior. A burden. A man whose daughter looked at him with pity. 6 months ago, Martha died. Cancer is a thief. It doesn't just take a life. It steals the air from the room. The house became too big, too quiet. My clocks kept ticking, but the heart of the home had stopped. That's when Clara arrived. Dad, you can't be alone, she had said at the funeral, her eyes red, her hand trembling as she held mine. Marcus and I, we've talked. We're moving in, just to help, just until you're back on your feet. I was drowning in grief. I reached for her hand like it was a life raft. I didn't realize it was an anchor designed to pull me under. At first it was beautiful. Breakfast was ready at 8 a.m. The smell of coffee returned to the kitchen. Marcus mowed the lawn. Clara cleaned the gutters. Rest, Dad, they'd say. You've worked enough. Let us handle the details. The details started with the mail. Just bills, Arthur, Marcus would say, tossing a stack of envelopes into the trash. I've set up autopay for you. Autopay. If you no need to stress your brain with numbers. Then came the fog. It started about 3 months ago. Strange heaviness in my limbs. A blurriness at the edges of my vision. I'd be in my workshop holding a pair of tweezers, and I'd suddenly forget what I was doing. I'd stare at a 19th century French mantel clock, and the gears would look like a jumbled mess of gold and silver. It's just age, Dad, Clara would whisper, her hand on my shoulder. She started bringing me the vitamins, small, white, unmarked pills. Dr. Miller said these would help with the memory. For the cognitive decline. I don't remember seeing Dr. Miller, I said one night. Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. You did, Dad. Last Tuesday. Don't you remember? You were so confused in the office. It was hard to watch. I felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather, had I? Was my mind really betraying me? I began to doubt my own eyes. I started seeing Martha in the shadows. I'd hear her calling my name from the garden. You're hallucinating, Arthur, Marcus said, his voice firm but concerned. It's common at this stage. That's why we're here, to keep you safe from yourself. They installed the cameras. For your safety, they said, in case you fall. but the lenses always seemed to follow me. Tiny black eyes watching my every move. I wasn't a father in a home anymore. I was a specimen in a cage. I reached the basement door. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely turn the knob. I didn't turn on the light. I knew the 13 steps by heart. 1, 2, 3. The air in the basement smelled of oil, old wood, and damp earth. It was my sanctuary. My workshop was at the far end, but Ethan told me to go to the furnace. I crawled. It's an old man of 70, crawling on his hands and knees on the cold concrete. Behind the massive, rusted iron of the furnace was a loose wooden panel. I had shown it to Ethan when he was a boy. I used to hide treasures there. Old coins, comic books, a broken watch I promised to teach him to fix. I pulled the panel back. I slipped inside the narrow, dark space. It smelled of dust and spiders. I pulled the panel shut and slid the small brass bolt into place. Silence, and then ... footsteps. Directly above me, in the kitchen. Heavy, deliberate. Marcus. Then a lighter set. Clara. I pressed my ear against the floorboards. Their voices carried through the vents. Is the old man down? Marcus asked. His voice wasn't the kind, patient voice he used during the day. It was sharp, efficient, cruel. He took the double dose, Clara replied. There was a clink of glass, a bottle hitting the counter. Shouldn't even be breathing deeply for the next 10 hours. My blood turned to ice. Double dose, the vitamins. Good, Marcus said. I heard the sound of paper rustling. The lawyer called. Everything is set for Monday. If he's as confused as he was today, the medical evaluator will sign the papers in 10 minutes. Incompetence. Total power of attorney and the house, Clara asked. Her voice was low, but there was a hunger in it that broke my heart. Listed by Wednesday, sold by Friday. We clear the gambling debts in the city, and we still have enough left for the condo in Florida. He'll be comfortable in the facility, Clara. They have people like him. I know, Clara whispered. But sometimes I look at him, and I remember. I remember when he used to fix my toys. The man upstairs isn't the man who fixed your toys. He's a walking bank account that's about to expire. Don't get weak now. We're so close. I sat in the dark. The darkness wasn't just in the crawl space. It was everywhere. My own daughter, my Clara. I looked at the phone in my hand. 12:45 a.m. Ethan was still 3.5 hours away. I was trapped in a coffin of my own making, listening to my children plan my funeral. The floorboards above me finally went silent. The heavy footsteps of Marcus and the sharp clicks of Clara's heels retreated. I stayed in the crawl space for a long time. My heart was a frantic bird trapped in a cage of ribs. My knees were numb. I looked at my watch. It was 1:30 a.m. Ethan was still 3 hours away. 3 hours is an eternity. I had to move. I couldn't stay in this hole. They checked my room and found the bed empty. The game was over. I pushed the wooden panel open. The sound of the brass bolt sliding back felt like a gunshot in the stillness of the basement. I crawled out. I felt every year of my 70 years in my joints. I stood up, leaning against the cold iron of the furnace. The air was thick with the scent of old oil and forgotten things. I made my way to the stairs. 1 step, 2 steps. Every creak of the wood sounded like a scream. I reached the kitchen. The moonlight was streaming through the windows, casting long skeletal shadows across the floor. I looked at the counter. There was the glass Clara had used. There was the bottle of vitamins. I didn't stop. I walked like a ghost through my own home. I reached my bedroom and slipped under the covers. My skin was ice cold. My breath was shallow. I waited. At 7 a.m., the door creaked open. I didn't move. I kept my eyes closed, breathing in the rhythmic way of someone lost in a deep sleep. I heard the rustle of Clara's dress. I felt her presence beside the bed. "Dad?" she whispered. I didn't answer. I let my head roll slightly to the side. I heard her sigh. It wasn't a sigh of relief. It was a sigh of calculation. She walked to the window and pulled back the curtains. The morning light hit my eyelids like a physical blow. "Dad, wake up. It's a beautiful day." "You have so much to do," I groaned. I rubbed my eyes. I made sure my hand trembled. I let my jaw hang slightly loose. I looked at her with a gaze that I tried to make as empty as a desert. "Martha," I asked. My voice was a cracked whisper. Is the tea ready? Clara's face didn't flinch, but she had grown so good at this lie. No, Dad. It's Clara, remember? Martha's been gone for a long time. You're having one of your bad mornings. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the small white pill. She held out a glass of water. Take your medicine, Dad. It will help the fog go away. This was the moment. My heart was hammering, but I kept my face blank. I took the pill. I felt the dry, chalky texture against my tongue. I took a long sip of water. I tilted my head back. I swallowed hard. I let her see the movement of my throat. Good boy, she said. She patted my hand. As soon as she turned to pick up the tray from the nightstand, I moved the pill. It was a trick I had practiced as a child to avoid bitter medicine. I tucked it deep into the pocket of my cheek, hidden behind my lower molars. She walked to the door. Marcus is going to help you get dressed later. We have a visitor coming today. A friend of the family. You need to look your best. The friend, the medical evaluator. Door closed. I waited until I heard her footsteps disappear down the hallway. I spat the pill into my hand. It was already starting to dissolve, leaving a bitter chemical film on my skin. I reached for my nightstand. There was an old silver pocket watch there. It didn't work. It was a 19th century piece. It's with a double case. I pressed a hidden spring on the side. The back cover popped open, revealing a hollow space. Where the gears used to be? I dropped the pill inside, joined for others. I sat back against the pillows. For the first time in months, the fog wasn't thickening, it was receding. My mind was like a clock that had finally been cleaned of grit. I could see the gears turning. I could see the trap. Chapter 7. The eyes in the walls. I spent the morning being the victim. Marcus came in at 9 a.m. He was whistling a jaunty tune. He helped me out of bed with a grip that was just a little too tight. Big day today, Arthur, he said. He led me to the bathroom. I looked up at the crown molding. There it was. A tiny black dot. A lens. It was angled perfectly to see the sink and the toilet. Why are you looking up there, Dad? Marcus asked. His voice was sharp. I blinked slowly. I pointed at the ceiling. Spiders. They're building a city up there. Don't you see the silk? Marcus laughed. It was a cold, mocking sound. Spiders, right? Just keep your eyes on your feet, Arthur. We don't want you falling again. He dressed me like a doll, put me in a stiff button-down shirt and gray slacks. He combed my hair with a brutality that made my scalp sting. Every time he touched me, I felt a surge of pure, unadulterated rage, but I kept it down. I buried it deep under my confusion. I was led to the living room. They sat me in my favorite armchair, the one Martha bought me for our 25th anniversary. They placed a book in my lap. Just sit here and relax, Clara said. I watched them from the corner of my eye. They were moving through the house like they already owned it. Marcus was measuring the walls in the dining room. Clara was going through the china cabinet, marking pieces with small sticky notes. They weren't even hiding it anymore. To them, I was already gone. I was a ghost haunting my own living room. I looked at the clock on the mantel. 10:30 a.m. Ethan should be close, but he had told me to stay hidden. He had told me to wait. I realized then that Ethan wasn't just coming to save me. He was coming to build a case. He needed them to commit the crime. He needed them to show their hand. I was the bait. Chapter 8. The visitor at 11:15 a.m. The doorbell rang. Clara rushed to the door, her face transforming into a mask of professional concern. Dr. Eris, thank you so much for coming on such short notice. A man in a charcoal suit entered. He carried a leather briefcase and a heavy air of authority. This was the evaluator, the man who held my freedom in his fountain pen. Of course, the doctor said. He looked over at me. And this is Mr. Vance? This is Arthur, Marcus said, stepping forward. He's had a very difficult morning. The hallucinations are getting worse. He was talking to spiders earlier. Dr. Eris walked over to me. He knelt down so he was at eye level, pulled a small flashlight from his pocket and shined it into my eyes. Arthur, can you hear me? I didn't answer right away. I let my eyes wander around the room. I looked at a spot 3 inches above his head. The ticking, I whispered. It's too loud. Can you make it stop? The doctor frowned. He looked at the mantel clock. The clock, Arthur. It's just a normal sound. No, I said, leaning in. I gripped his arm. I made sure my fingernails dug in just a little, the ticking inside the walls. It sounds like teeth eating the wood. I saw Marcus and Clara exchange a look of pure triumph. Dr. Aris sighed and started writing in his notebook. Disorientation, auditory hallucinations, lack of spatial awareness. He turned to Clara. How long has he been like this? It's been a steady decline since his wife passed, Clara said, her voice trembling with fake emotion. But the last few weeks, it's been heartbreaking. He doesn't know what day it is. He forgets to eat. He thinks he's still in his workshop in 1985. The doctor nodded. He opened his briefcase and pulled out a stack of legal documents. Based on what I'm seeing and the medical history you've provided, I think the recommendation for immediate guardianship is appropriate.
Nice.
He is a danger to himself. Marcus stepped forward, a pen already in his hand. We just want what's best for him, Doctor. We can't keep him safe here anymore. I understand, Dr. Aris said. He laid the papers on the coffee table. If you'll just sign here and here. I'll finalize the medical certification this afternoon. I watched the pen move toward the paper. My heart was a drum. Where was Ethan? Chapter 9. The sound of the engine suddenly. A low rumble vibrated through the floorboards. It wasn't the sound of a normal car. It was the heavy, growling idle of a large engine. It stopped right in front of the house. Marcus paused, the pen hovering inches above the signature line. Are we expecting anyone else? Clara walked to the window. She pulled back the lace curtain. Her face went from triumph to confusion. It's a black SUV, she said. 2 of them. They're parking on the lawn. The door didn't open with a knock. It opened with a key. Ethan stepped into the foyer. He wasn't wearing his usual Sunday sweater. He was wearing a tactical vest. He had a radio clipped to his shoulder and a holster on his hip. Behind him were 3 men and a woman, all moving with the practiced, lethal efficiency of a federal team. Ethan, Clara gasped. What are you doing here? We're supposed to be in D.C. Ethan didn't look at her. He walked straight into the living room. He looked at the doctor. He looked at the papers on the table. And then he looked at me. Dad, he said. I stood up. I didn't tremble. I didn't whisper about spiders. I stood up straight. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the silver watch. I popped the back cover and dumped the 5 white pills onto the coffee table. They rattled against the wood like tiny white stones. The fog is gone, Ethan, I said. My voice was as clear as a bell. The silence in the room was absolute. It was the silence of a clock that had finally, mercifully stopped ticking toward disaster. Ethan turned to Marcus. Marcus Thorne. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, K, and the illegal administration of controlled substances. Marcus dropped the pen. It hit the floor with a tiny, pathetic thud. And Clara, Ethan said, his voice finally breaking, showing the pain of a brother betrayed by a sister. You need to come with us too, the silent ticking. Part 3, The Weight of Justice, Chapter 10, The Room of Frozen Hearts. The living room felt smaller now, crowded with the weight of truth. Marcus stood frozen, his hand still shaped as if he were holding the pen that would have stolen my life. His face, once so smug and polished, had turned the color of wet ash. Ethan didn't move. He stood in the center of the room like a statue carved from granite. Dr. Aris, Ethan said, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. I suggest you put your notebook away. My team has been monitoring this house for 48 hours. Every word spoken, every vitamin administered, has been recorded on federal servers. The doctor looked like he wanted to vanish into the floorboards. I was only acting on the medical history you provided by the family. I had no idea. You'll have plenty of time to explain your lack of awareness to the board, Ethan interrupted. One of the agents, a woman with sharp eyes and a black vest, stepped forward. She took the 5 pills I had dumped onto the table. She placed them in a plastic evidence bag. Sulpidem and high-dose sedatives, she whispered, looking at Ethan. Crushed and mixed with sugar coating, enough to make a horse forget its own name. I looked at Clara. She was huddled on the sofa, her hands covering her face. She wasn't crying, not yet. She was shaking. Dad, she gasped, looking up at me. Her eyes were wide, searching for the old, confused man she thought I had become. We were in trouble. Marcus, ... he owed people. Dangerous people. We were just trying to save ourselves. By killing me? I asked. My voice was quiet. It didn't need to be loud. You didn't just want the house, Clara. You wanted to erase me while I was still breathing. Chapter 11. The paper trail of greed. Ethan walked over to Marcus. He didn't use force. He didn't need to. The sheer presence of the law was enough to make Marcus collapse into a chair. $2 million, Marcus? Ethan said, pulling a tablet from his vest. That's a lot of money to lose on a weekend in Atlantic City. Another $300,000 in offshore crypto accounts. All transferred from my father's retirement fund over the last 90 days? Did you think I wouldn't notice the repair withdrawals? Marcus looked up, his eyes bloodshot. It was a loan. I was going to pay it back. I just needed a win. One big win. The only win you got was a one-way ticket to a federal penitentiary, Ethan snapped. He turned to the agents. Take them. Secure the devices. I want every hidden camera in this house pulled and tagged. And find the original power of attorney documents they forged last month. As the agents moved in, the reality finally hit Clara. She began to scream, Ethan, you can't do this. I'm your sister. He's our father. We're family. Ethan stopped. He looked at her, and for a second, I saw the little boy who used to play tag with her in the backyard. I saw the brother who used to protect her from bullies. Then, I saw the man who had seen too much darkness in the world. Family doesn't drug their father, Clara, he said softly. Family doesn't build a cage and call it a home. The house was empty now. The agents were gone. Marcus and Clara were gone. The doctor had been escorted out for questioning. It was just me and Ethan. I sat back down in my armchair. I felt 1,000 years old, yet lighter than I had in months. The fog was completely gone, replaced by a cold, hard clarity. How long, Ethan? 3 months, Dad, he said. I started seeing the transfers. I tried to call you, but Marcus always answered. He told me you were too sick to talk. He told me you didn't remember who I was. I couldn't just come and get you. I knew Marcus. If I showed up, he'd hide the evidence, or worse. I had to let them think they were winning. I had to build a wall of evidence so high they could never climb over it. I reached out and touched his shoulder. You saved my life, son. I'm sorry it took so long, he whispered. I'm sorry you had to spend those nights in the basement. Don't be, I said. In the basement, I learned how to be a clockmaker again. I learned how to listen to the silence. I learned that even when a clock stops, it doesn't mean time has ended. It just means it needs a new spring. I didn't stay in the Victorian house. I couldn't. Every corner held a memory that had been stained. I sold it a month later. I gave half the money to a foundation for elder abuse, a place that helps people who don't have an Ethan in their lives. I moved to a small cottage by the lake, just 10 minutes from Ethan's house. My new workshop has windows on all sides. The light is perfect for the delicate work. I'm 71 now. Marcus is serving 15 years. Clara received a shorter sentence, but the wall between us is permanent. She sends postcards sometimes, filled with apologies. I don't burn them, but I don't reply. Forgiveness is a gear I haven't quite fixed yet, and maybe I never will. But I have my grandsons now. Yesterday, the eldest, Leo, brought me a broken plastic watch. Grandpa, can you fix it? Yes. I sat him down at my bench, handed him a small magnifying loupe. In here, Leo, I said, pointing to the tiny heart of the watch. Every part matters. If one piece thinks it's more important than the others, the whole thing fails. It has to work together. That's what loyalty is. That's what family is. People think being old means you're waiting for the end. They think the gears are worn out. They think the ticking is just a countdown. They are wrong. My name is Arthur Vance. I am 71 years old. I survived a betrayal that should have killed me. I fought a war in the shadows of my own hallway. I've learned that broken things can heal. I've learned that the most beautiful masterpieces are the ones that have been restored after the most terrible damage. But to anyone listening, anyone who feels invisible, anyone who feels the fog settling in, do not let them stop your clock. Your time is yours. Your story is yours. And as long as you are breathing, you have the power to fix the gears. Trust your gut. Listen to the midnight calls. And never, ever forget. The truth always finds its way to the surface. It's only a matter of time.